Y'all knew I was going to do this eventually. Hey yo, my name is Sarah, and today's book review is on Solo Leveling by Chugong. I hope I am pronouncing that name correctly. That is the solo leveling that, we all know and love about. Well, light novel. And the actual physical copy of the manhwa, even though it's called a manga if you go and purchase and order it. For those of you who don't know, I am a big fan of solo leveling. I am still reading when it comes on every week. I used to do the reactions. Now I just, post little commentaries on my Instagram if y'all still want to go check that out. But yeah, now that it's in paperback form, of course I had to read it. And well, talk about going through memory lane. Non-spoilers, I give the light novel a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, it felt like I was going down memory lane. There are some things I forgot and things like, wow, that really happened that early on in the story. Our main character is Sung Jin-woo, even though in this translation they're gonna have the last name at the last part and the first name in the first part, so it would be Jin-woo Sung, but it's Sung Jin-woo, and it's like in the modern day Korea where gates appear that lead into dungeons, and there are people who awaken as hunters. Now the thing about being a hunter is that you really can level up, so once you awaken to a level that you're given, that's it. So Jinwoo, he is ranked a E-rank hunter, and even that's weak, but he's also known as like the weakest of E-rank hunters. He's the weakest hunter of all mankind, which is a terrible name to get. And so one day he goes on a raid with some people, believing it's a casual raid, when they find a hidden dungeon and they go in thinking it's the boss room, and things don't turn out so well. And in return, Jinwoo does this sacrifice to where he gets the ability to start leveling up. So, solo leveling. Again, I forgot how close these arcs were until I read this, and I was like, wow, either I'm getting really old, or I just never thought how close certain arcs were in the manhwa story. So again, it was a good memory lane. And I also forgot how the earlier arcs in solo leveling were so graphic. Until I read this, I'm like, dang, I'm forgetting stuff. Because even though you know how far we are in the manhwa, well, reading the light novel, I was like, oh, I can see clearly now. I enjoyed reading the light novel. I enjoyed beginning again with Jinwoo's journey and how intense this world is. If you're a hunter, if you're a normal person, it's still intense. We can still run away. Being a hunter and going on these raids, I forgot all the troubles it goes through. And it also felt like a slight play-by-play of the manhwa. So if you read the manhwa, you pretty much already know what's going on in the light novels. Some things were cut, some things were added, but it's kind of a good mirror, I would have to say, between the two writing forms. I didn't mind that. I still enjoyed it. And yeah, that's as far as I can get into non-spoilers. Solo Leveling by Chugong. 4 out of 5 stars. Bye, non-spoilers. Spoilers. Yeah, I'm just gonna move this to up here since it's easier to see without my shoulder getting in the way. So continuing. So we open up with Jinwoo showing up at the dungeon site where I believe it was considered a D-rank dungeon based off of the gate. Either way, Jinwoo shows up there and he hears people talking around him like, oh, it's Jinwoo, then this is going to be the most easiest gate of all, because again, people know him as, the weakest hunter of all mankind, which is kind of sad, because it's like thinking, I'm pretty sure there's other E-rank hunters, but we find out he's even lower of the E-ranks. And Jinwoo can hear all this stuff because he still has sharp hearing. He's still a hunter, so he can still hear these things. He meets some people that he's familiar with, such as Juhee, who is a B-rank healer who's always been healing Jinwoo's wounds. And so with a friend in mind and some people he's kind of familiar with, they go into the dungeon, and it's a simple raid, making quick cash, because that's what we hunters do. We have bills to pay, we got kids to take care of, we got mortgages to deal with, student loans. For Jinwoo's case, he's trying to get his sister through school and taking care of his mother's medical bills. So again, it's money that's the prize. We're clearing the dungeon, and we haven't made it to the boss room until someone realizes that there's a hidden dungeon, and they think it's the boss room. So Song Chu-yul, who goes by, you know, sometimes Mr. Song or Chu Yul in this story. He is the leader of this raid, so he does the vote, and it goes split even until it's Jinwoo who has to make the final decision, and he's like, you know, kind of need the money, so we'll go. And they go into the dungeons. Like, this is where the troubles begin. Now we're in the dungeons, big spacious circle area with statues and everything, and someone goes up to a tablet, and it's the commandments of, I believe it's like the Cardian Temple? It's Cartanon Temple. And the moment they read it, that's when the game begins, because the doors close. Someone goes to the doors to try to open it, and one of the statues in that, you know, that's when we realize this is no ordinary temple. And again, this is where I forgot how graphic Solo Leveling was earlier on in the stories, because when everyone's freaking out and they don't know what to do, and Juhi was the one that mentioned how the statue's eyes moved, and when Jinwoo looks at it again, it starts doing the hyper beam through the eyes, and people are dying left and right, and Jinwoo manages to get everyone to bow. People bow. One guy freaks out. He thinks, oh, I'm really fast, I can get out of here, because he sensors all of his power into his legs, and he tries to make it run for it, but the hyper beam catches him, and all that's left are his legs. And everyone just, like, you know, scatters when the statue stands up and starts stomping around. And especially gets the guy who, when Jinwoo realizes, yeah, we have to praise the god, and he's praising the wrong god, and the slap and the stomps to the other hunters. I'm like, again, this raid that we were introduced to, the story of Solo Leveling, I forgot how graphic it was. I'm like, oh my god. With everyone dying and stuff, we were introduced to this character, like a small snippet named Park. And, you know, we were like, oh, he has a family. Oh, he has a pregnant wife. Oh, he needs this money to take care of his family. Well, everyone's dying, so this person that we do get attached to, he dies. And Jinwoo figures out how they can defeat the statue that was sitting on the throne that's going around stomping and killing people, because the guard statues are just keeping to their spots, and they're just slicing whoever comes too close. Jinwoo says we have to get to, like, the statues with musical instruments, so we're kind of low on people. Like, I think it's like 6 hunters left, including him. And so they're trying to get to each statue that has an instrument, one with a drum, one with a flute, that kind of thing. And Jinwoo's trying to get you his. Well, he's with Juhi, and the statue comes after them, only because there can only be one person per statue, so he leaves Juhi. The statue that's from the throne, stomping and killing people, ignores Juhi, goes after Jinwoo. He mistakes a statue after someone calls out, that's not a musical instrument, it's a shield. Well, Jinwoo does a tuck and roll, evades the statue, only later on to find out he loses his leg. He makes it to a statue that's, you know, the singing statue, and they manage to stop the throne statue for it to go back to his throne and sit down. So we're done with that tense moment. When all these little flames start popping up, that's when Jinwoo realizes that what the last commandment was, which was sacrifice. And the doors open, so one hunter just, like, makes a beeline for the door, and people are like, you're gonna die! But he makes it through the door, and the flame goes out, and the door slightly closes. Well, another hunter does ditch Jinwoo, one of the guys that did carry him, and he makes a run for the door again, and the door slowly closes, but, you know, the door's still open. Like, it's still there, and the flames are going out, so they realize that someone has to stay behind to not only keep their eyes on the statues that are slowly making their way over, like, you know, the weeping angels, but someone has to be a sacrifice. And, you know, for a second, Chiyul did, you know, say, I will be the sacrifice. First of all, he lost his arm. He let the people in here. He feels like he needs to take responsibility and everything. And we get this slight moment where Mr. Kim, he's, like, thanking Jinwoo for everything he's done, but he's like, I still got a life out there. I still got a family to take care of, so I apologize, but I have to leave. And he abandons them, like, there's no more people left to keep an eye on all of the statues. So they realized that, you know, we can't move Jinwoo, and he asked Chiyul to take Juhi, who's already used up all of her energy for the healing, and she's already suffering the side effects. So now it's only Jinwoo in the temple, and the statues are ruthless. After, you know, the spear and everything, they put him on the altar to be sacrificed, and he realizes he doesn't want to die. And right before the sword comes down, congratulations for completing the hidden quest. And it's like, the system's here. It's talking to Jinwoo, but it's like, did they mention that the voice for the system was female? Because I already have 2 systems in my memory bank, and that's the one that always goes, OOC, cannot do. And that's, Scumfield and Self-Saving System, and Sage, Master Sage, Grand Sage from Slime, Error, or Correct. Those are the only female systems I know, OOC and Master Sage. What was it again? Those were the only systems I know, OOC and Sage. So it's like, this new one that has a female voice, I don't know if I can trust her just yet. But she says, would you like to accept as player? And he was like, sure, before dying. And then it's like, congratulations, you are now a player. And he wakes up in the hospital. It's been a few days, 3 actually, since the dungeon, and Jinwoo wakes up. He's like, I'm alive. Checks his leg. I have my leg. And it's like, what is going on? And then he gets the remarkable entrance of the Hunters Association surveillance team, and lo and behold, it's our good old friend Woo Jin-chul, who I feel sorry for later on in the story, in the manhwa, for, reasons. But there he is. He's there telling Jinwoo what happened, and they believe, the Hunters Association believes, he might have reawakened. So, the awakening is where people find out that they're hunters and their level is set. Well, there's a possibility, a slim possibility of a possible reawakening where you can level up to a new level. So, for example, if Jinwoo did reawaken, he could become like a C rank hunter. Better jobs, better payment, and everything, because we're only in for the Hunter Association and everything because of good health insurance. And so they try testing out Jinwoo, and the machine does pick up that he is an E rank hunter, but the mono levels for an E rank is 12, and Woo is like, you have got to be kidding me. This guy is a 10. So it's like, we just wasted our time here. Please take your time getting well, Mr. Song Jinwoo. Bills are paid. Just take your time to recuperate, and everything's free of charge. Thank you for your time. And they leave, and Jinwoo is like, did I not level up? What was their expressions? Their expressions. He thinks like, did he level up? I don't know. Especially like after Woo's like, he's only an E rank and not even the best. We get our first announcement from our system. That is the strength training quest. And it's the multiple hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, and that running of the kilometers. And Jinwoo's like, nah, I'm okay, I don't need to do this. Well, the day goes by, and the system is like, warning, have not been able to complete the daily tasks, must suffer penalty. And Jim was like, wait, what? First of all, I'm asleep. Second of all, why am I in the middle of a desert? Because the system transports them to the penalty area, another dungeon, and it's like, you must survive for 4 hours, time remaining 3 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Good luck. And the centipedes of the desert show up. So Jinwoo must evade these centipedes, because if he dies, he will die, and he must do it for 4 hours. So we have learned our lesson. Complete the daily tasks, or you get penalized for 4 hours in a world where these monsters are apparently stronger than us. But don't worry, Jinwoo does survive for his 4 hours, and he learned his lesson. I will complete the daily tasks. Now, completing his daily tasks, he does get some, rewards, and he manages to figure out how to start, accessing these rewards, as well as, inventory. So the system goes by a video game-esque way. So some people who know how to play video games, you're good. For those of us who are still reading the manual, give us a moment. But either way, Jinwoo does receive rewards, and he starts, throwing points into his stats. Really good. He does a lot in his strength, but he does get a reward that gives him a key that leads him to a gate that he can only access. And when he goes into the gate, he realizes that he also cannot leave the gate. So much for taking a peekaboo and assessing and going back to probably collect some items to prepare for the raid on the dungeon. But no, he has to go in all the way. He does have a weapon. He did manage to keep Mr. Kim's weapon. his sword. So we have that. We're not going in all blindly. And you know, it's kind of set underground subway style, and no one's there, thank God. He does come across the steel-fanged lichens, and he does the first swing. He's like, oh, I took it out in one hit. These have to be at least like, you know, D-rank monsters. I used to get beaten up by E-rank monsters. I just took out this D-rank monster. I can do this with a sword. Oh crap, it's stuck. And here comes the other lichens, and Jin was like, fists. And he takes the first punch at a wolf. And remember, he's been putting all his points into his strength stats. So, of course, he one punches this wolf into the ceiling, crushes his head, and there it goes. And the other lichens are like, oh, Nani. And so he's like, whoa, I can do this. And he manages to get the sword out. But this is where it's like, this would have been probably the best time to attack, because he's doing that inner monologue in his mind, figuring out how the system works and how he can apply his other points to his other stats, like how to make things, you know, more even and everything. He realizes one of the lichens are gone. Maybe it ran away. But he realizes no, he went to go get his buddies. Next dot later. Congratulations, leveling up, leveling up, leveling up. So Jinwoo is actually now leveling up and collecting items for, you know, to try to sell in the shop that he can't access yet at the level he is. But for a while, there's only 2 levels. So he's been grinding both levels until he can no longer level up. And he's like, okay, I think I'm at a good spot now. And he realizes the only way how to get out of this dungeon is to go to the 3rd floor, which is the boss level floor. Now with Jinwoo at the level of 15, he managed to level up over time, so now he's at a level 15. He goes to the boss floor, and it's like, you know, underground water, swamp-esque area. And the boss level is, of course, Blue Venom Fanged Kasaka. And I will admit, how this is where in the manhwa they actually show detailed moments, more, I would say, dragged out to give you the important feeling of how the situation is, making you actually sweat just a little bit. But in the light novel, Jinwoo goes up against Kasaka. He realizes that the sword isn't penetrating its scales. It's faster than he is, and the only way how to get to it is, like, you know, the headlock squeeze tactic. And he manages to get the snake, Kasaka, and he's squeezing with all his life while Kasaka's throwing him around. And then you get the system saying, congratulations, boss has been defeated. If I remember correctly, this was an intense battle, because this was like Jinwoo's first solo battle raid against a boss, and he was sweating a little bit. He was like, oh my god, this thing's really strong. But no, here he just like headlocks it and squeezes with all its might, and it's defeated. So it's like, okay, that's one thing I liked about the manhwa, how they made apparent how these situations were, you know, difficult. But the rewards are rewarding, because that's when Jinwoo gets his signature dagger, which is a fang, and a poison that will help him. First of all, he has to figure out how not to ingest it and lose a bunch of his strength points in return of getting the buffs to make it more, to raise his defense. So we'll just keep that in the inventory for now. Now, the dungeon, now that it's been cleared and the boss has been defeated, the dungeon, you know, unlike a regular dungeon that gives you like an hour max to get out or you're stuck in there, this one just like shoots him out into society. And it's like, oh, I'm back outside. And a soldier approaches him and he looks at him, because like, you're getting a question in this world. If you see a guy all disheveled with a dagger, like, is he someone I should arrest, or is he a hunter? But he like looks at Jinwoo, he's like, oh, you're a hunter. This way, sir. And Jinwoo's like, okay. We find out that there's been a dungeon break. So that is like where dungeons have certain limited amount of times for you to go in there to raid. And when that time is up and no one cleared the dungeon and defeated the boss, there's a dungeon break where the monsters can get out. Apparently common thing in our world. And there's one across the street, and Jinwoo sees that there is a group of hunters that are kind of lower leveled, trying to take out the boss that made it out. It's a golem type boss monster, and they're having difficulty. And Jinwoo's like, there's no, you know, higher ranked hunters. These are like simple, I guess C rank, maybe a B rank hunters, and they're having difficulty. Well, Jinwoo decides to test out his power that he has just achieved. So while he's left alone, some people need to keep an eye on this guy later in life, but he takes a stance, takes the broken sword that he has, because Kasaka broke the sword now, but he has his dagger, so it's okay. He takes the sword, powers up because you can see the veins, and it kills the golem in one shot. It's a one-shot blow. The golem goes down. It's dead, and people are like, "Oh, we took it out." But the tank that was getting all beat up, and he was the closest to the golem, he's like, "What was that?" He searches the ground, and he sees that, you know, there's a broken piece of sword, and he looks over. He calls the soldier. He's like, "Hey, did you do that?" He's like, "No, I think it's the hunter that was." "Where did you go?" And Jinwoo realizes, I have gotten stronger. With his newfound power and strength and everything, Jinwoo realizes he's a little short on cash. He's got to, you know, pay the rent, make sure Jinha has her money for school and everything. That's his sister. And so he goes online because he's part of the Hunters Association, not part of a guild. As if a guild would take a E-rank hunter. Well, he does see a posting for a strike squad, and all they need is just a certain amount of members, because you need, like, I believe, like 10 members to go into a, you know, a gate to a dungeon. That's appropriate head amount count. And they're like, "Yeah, we'll pay you this much money. We'll take anyone." And so Jin was like, money, thought. And he goes there. And they're like, "Oh, you're just an earring hunter. You're fine. We just need you for a head count. We'll do everything." And that's where we meet Wang Dong-suk and Yu Jin-ho. And I was like, again, I forgot how close these events were in the earlier stories. I thought they were more spread out, but I was like, we're already getting to this already? Jin-ho is still the precious little puppy boy that we all know and love. I'm like, "Oh, it's your first array. You're so cute." And Jin-woo's like, "Go away." Now Dong-suk, he is the one in charge of the team, so he leads the group into the dungeon. He has his friends that he's been with the strike squad for so many times. They just need Jin-ho and Jin-woo for this to meet the numbers to, you know, enter the dungeon. And as they're, you know, fighting the monsters and everything, and they're talking, and Jin-woo's like getting that my spidey senses are tingling. I don't trust these people. The dungeon is filled with bugs, so why do it have to be bugs? And they make it to the boss room, and the spider boss is asleep because it ate so much, but the room is filled with mana stones. And of course, Jin-woo's on the contract saying he would just get his payment, nothing else from the dungeon, but Jin-ho says, like, "Don't worry, I know business." And he takes the contract and he tells Dong-suk, like, "Hey, there's nothing in the contract saying anything about, you know, not collecting mana stones or so." And so Dong-suk's like, "Yeah, you're right. Don't worry, we'll split it evenly. Hey, I need y'all guys to keep an eye on the dungeon. We gotta go back to get our equipment because we didn't expect so much loot here. Y'all can do that, right? Just you, D rank, and an E rank hunter, correct? Sweet. We're going." And Jin-woo, he expected this next thing to happen where they shoot the entrance to the boss level room and not only traps him in there but wakes the boss, because Jin-woo, having been in the hunter field for 4 years, this is Jin-ho's first raid. He met an older hunter that said, you know, beware the lizards. And the lizards are people that just, you know, use other hunters to get the head count, and if they prove too difficulty, they'll just cut off their tail and reap the rewards while leaving the tail to die. And that is what Jin-ho and Jin-woo are. They are the tail, and they have just been cut. And of course, Jin-ho is freaking out, and Jin-woo just gotta stretch. And then Jin-ho's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm gonna go fight that thing." And this is where we get a full test. That scared me. This is where we get a full test of Jin-woo's abilities. And here he is taking on the boss by himself. Just stab, stab, stabby, stab. And that's when Jin-ho's like, "This isn't the power of an E-rank hunter. Is he a false ranker? Rankers that hide their true abilities just so they can go on easy dungeons and possibly kill a bunch of people because they're all homicidal maniacs?" I'm thinking, no, Jin-woo just wants to hide this fact that he can level up. Me, I am an A-rank hunter, but I hide the fact that I am because that's too much responsibilities to follow my soldier, and I just want an easy life unless I have to do something. But no, don't look at me. I'm just a simple D-rank hunter. So, no, Jin-woo's just very cautious about people. I'm just gonna take this down. He's very cautious about people finding out about the system and what he can do, so he wants to keep on the down low, which is understandable. But he does beat the spider, and he sees the loot, and he sees the loot from the bugs that the spider ate, and there's so many essence stones. Essence stones are more valuable than mana stones. And Jinho's like, don't worry, boss, I got this for you. Boss, would you like a drink? Boss, I can carry this for you. And Jinwoo's like, what's with this boss stuff? He probably's like afraid of what I did. That's understandable, you know, I did just defeat this boss by myself, so I'll just let this slide. And of course, lo and behold, guess who shows up thinking that they would be dead? Dong-suk and his team. This is where the system, we have to be careful with the system now, because it would perceive the people, not monsters, were a threat to Jinwoo, and instead enemies have been spotted. Must defeat enemies or, you know, you will die. And he can't run away, he has to defeat the enemies. So we now know if you show murderous intent towards Jinwoo, the system will say, yes, must kill enemies or your heart will stop. Jinwoo proves that he's probably now a B rank hunter by his abilities, because he easily takes out Dong-suk's team. He goes after Dong-suk, and we get that ominous warning, do you not know who my younger brother? And it's like, haha, forewarning, ominous cloud looming over us. But still, Jinwoo kills him. I was like, what is he talking about, his younger brother? Oh, well, the dungeon's about to close. Hey, Jinho, we gotta go. Right, boss, I have our gear, boss. It's like, okay. And while they're leaving, they make this deal, because Jinwoo's like, how can I trust you to not tell my secret? Jinho's like, I will give you all of the loot, boss, I swear to you. And he's like, but how do I know you won't betray me? I swear to you, boss, on my life, I will take the secret to the grave. You don't have to go that far, but okay. And he sees the eyes that refused to follow Dong-suk's orders to kill Jinwoo. He's like, okay, I can trust this kid. After selling all of the essence stones and making a great payday, Jinho does call Jinwoo up again. And he's like, boss, I have something I must ask you. And he's like, what? I just need you to help me complete 19 raids. I just need you to help me clear 19 dungeons. Please, boss, please, I need your help. And then it clicks to Jinwoo. You want to get the Guildmaster's license, don't you? So, Jinho comes from a very wealthy family in construction, and he found out that his dad wants to start a guild to help the family business. And he realized that, you know, if Jinho teamed up with Jinwoo, who is a low rank hunter, instead of a regular high rank hunter who his father wants to hire to be the guild master, he realized that his cred would be interesting, because he's a D rank hunter, but not only did he manage to finish these 20 required dungeons with a low rank hunter, that would make him a better candidate. And Jinwoo said, only of us to go into the dungeon. And Jinho's like, why? And he's like, wouldn't it be even more interesting if you completed 20 dungeons with no injuries? And you're like, I like what you're thinking, boss, we'll do it. So we have a deal. Jinwoo did receive a key, part of his rewards, to go to the demon's castle. And I forgot how, I seriously forgot, people, I seriously forgot how earlier on the introduction to the demon's castle was, because this is an S rank dungeon. And Jinwoo gets a taste of that when he fights the guard dog Cerberus. He does take hit. He does feel the difference in the power. And he manages to kill Cerberus. But he's like, okay, I need to, you know, level up some more. I need to get to a higher rank before coming back here, because I can actually come and go in like the last dungeon that he went to. So we have that on the back burner. Jinwoo does cross paths with Jiwoo, who does apologize to his actions from the last dungeon. He's still doing, you know, raids and everything, even though he lost his arm. He's still a good hunter. And because he works for the Hunters Association, he gets a call. Jinwoo doesn't have his phone, so they both go to a dungeon where not only does he see Joo-hee and Mr. Kim and then the other hunter from the last dungeon, oh, the partners that they have to team up with to go into this dungeon. Again, I forgot how earlier on this story was. We're introduced to the prisoners that will be joining us on this raid because they're hunters, and part of the surveillance team, Kang Tae-suk. Oh, every time I saw him in the manhwa, I got that creepy hollow Ichigo voice in my head, because that's just the voice you go to for this character kind of guy. Because we enter the dungeon, he goes with the prisoners, they have to go separate ways, and so Jinwoo and Joo-hee go one way, Mr. Kim and the other hunter go their way, and Tae-suk and the prisoners go their way. They get to the dungeon, Team Jinwoo, but they're like, maybe we should wait for the others, and they hear the screams, and they run back, and they see people dead, and Tae-suk's like, don't worry, the prisoners got loose, and Joo-hee is like, don't worry, I'll heal you, but the moment she gets close, Tae-suk tries to kill her, but Jinwoo catches him, and he's like, how do you get here so fast? We find out that Tae-suk was paid by someone to kill the prisoners, specifically one prisoner that, violated his daughter, and so Tae-suk took the money, but he also took a bonus to say, I will also kill the hunter, so no eyewitnesses. And that's what Tae-suk does. He takes bribes because he likes killing people. And he was about to take out Joo-hee if it wasn't for Jinwoo stopping him. It's like, this is no ordinary A-rank hunter. After Jinwoo introduces himself, and in the back of his mind, Tae-suk's like, didn't my boss, Mr. Woo, check some guy thinking he was reawakened? I'm gonna have to ask for a bonus because this wasn't part of the plan. And this is where in the book, in the manhwa, we get a Mr. Kim confession and apology before dying. We don't get that in here, and we don't get the Chi-woo versus Tae-suk battle. That was kind of badass because he still lost his arm. We needed to see something, and he showed that he can still fight with a sword. But it's like, no, we don't get that. We just get the simple battle between Jinwoo and Tae-suk, and of course Jinwoo, after finding out that Tae-suk has stealth, but he also activated the system to kill the enemy, we get the simple combat fight, and Jinwoo kills Tae-suk. He does get the rune to the stealth ability, but it's like, I kind of missed that, I kind of missed that. But either way, Ji-woo and Joo-hee do leave the dungeon because he figures you're gonna complete the dungeon, aren't you? He's like, yes. He finds out that one of the prisoners, the one that did do the attack on the young woman, he was still alive because Tae-suk was tasked to make sure he suffered. Well, enter, Goblin Slayer, because Jinwoo takes him to the dungeon, to the boss level, and there's the goblins and hobgoblins, so of course, Goblin Slayer. But don't worry, after that, Jinwoo just kill the boss, get his rewards, and leaves the dungeon in time. And there's the Hunters Association asking questions, so who killed Tae-suk and the other people? And Ji-woo, who says, I killed him, and they're like, but you're just a regular B rank mage. I think he's a B rank, or he might be a C rank, but he's like, I had this lady here, and it was Joo-hee, who of course is the B rank healer, and like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And Jin was like, why did you tell them? And Ji-woo was like, I figure you might just want to keep this a secret for now. It's like, I owe you everything, and I gotta go take care of these questions. And so it's like, we have allies. And it's through here that Joo-hee tells Jinwoo that she's gonna retire, and if he's ever in Busan, to look her up. I would have thought that the novel would have ended off when we get the clip to America, and a certain Korean gets the news that his brother had died. He gets all the information on Jinwoo and Jinho, and he's like calling his agent saying, hey, what would happen if I killed someone in Korea? And she does all the legal procedures, and like, okay, keep me free for 2 weeks after 2 months. And she's like, why? I'm going to a family funeral. And it's like, Wong Dong-soo. We know where this is going currently in the manhwa, so it's like, the rival story has begun. I cannot wait until, this week's chapter to what's gonna happen between those two, because this has been a thing in the making. And that's not how we end off. We end off with Jinho having collected the appropriate number of people to do a raid, and that's like, yeah, you just have to sit here and do nothing. Just, y'all already got paid in advance, right? And they're like, it's only a D rank and an E rank hunter gonna go into these dungeons, and they're like, oh, they're gonna die. They come out an hour later, yo, time to move on to the next place, and they're like, oh. So this is an easy gig for these people who signed up for the strike squad to complete all 19 dungeons. But of course, we leave off on the final page with the White Tigers Guild manager, Mr. An, and his assistant finding out, yeah, these people like outbid us for all of these C rank gates. And Mr. An realizes, wait, Jinwoo, I must go recruit him because he remembers the talk about the Hunters Association checking someone, and he's like, I must get this guy before another guild because he is a reawakened. I have this feeling, I have this tingle that he is a reawakened. He's strong, but he's keeping it on the down low. And his assistant's like, boss, where are you going? He's like, I'm gonna go check out these gates and get Sung Jin Woo. It's like, we're doing this in person. It's like, this is something you must do in person to complete. And that's the end of spoilers. So this basically, the light novel basically mirrors the manhwa in its first few arcs. This one actually, I believe, ends off when he's going to the dungeon before finding Kasaka. The play-by-play, I miss it so much. I forgot how graphic the first few arcs in Solo Leveling were. And again, there were some things that the manhwa did add in that I did appreciate for its creativity, because it wasn't in here. We just got the straight up 1v1 fights from Jinwoo and some people, and it was really quick. And it also shows how strong he got. The system, with it being a female voice, I don't know. I already have those two systems in my mind that I appreciate, care, and you know, slightly wary of. But this one, I'm like, I don't know. And again, we leave off on a funny note, but with also the luminous, ominous foreboding of Wang Dong-soo, who people who don't know about the Solo Leveling manhwa, we realize how big of a pain in that he's gonna be. So again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going down memory lane. I enjoyed the good old days of Solo Leveling, because now it's just getting intense and heart-wrenching. I'm like, oh, I gotta wait for the next week. But again, I missed young Jinwoo, how he was to begin with before beginning his ascent into godhood, monarchhood, but you know what I mean. And I can't wait for the next volume, because hopefully we get my baby boy. We get my precious little shadow baby boy. I won't say who for people who have not read the manhwa, but for those who have and know who I'm talking about, my favorite shadow of them all, my baby boy. And so, yeah, for those who enjoy Solo Leveling manhwa, this is just a good play-by-play mirror image of the manhwa, just in paper word form. It's still a good read. I still enjoyed it. And yeah, Solo Leveling by Chugong, 4 out of 5 stars. And of course, the manhwa is out, people. My name is Sarah, and bye!